God's Word Express.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're jumping to something pretty intense. It's this whole concept of curses in the Bible.
Right.
But we're looking at it through a specific lens, aren't we?
Right.
Based on sources that treat curses as, well, real, like a tangible thing governed by spiritual law, not just folklore.
Exactly. The source material we're digging into today comes from a significant theological teaching. And it really insists we drop the idea of curses as just like old superstitions. Instead, it frames it all as a kind of spiritual legal code.
Okay.
And our mission really is to unpack that framework because according to this teaching, understanding these rules, these sort of spiritual penalties, is the absolute key if you want to get free from them.
And that's the hook, isn't it?
Yeah.
The source claims, and this is pretty striking, that even people who identify as Christians, people operating under grace, they can still be affected if they don't grasp the underlying mechanics of how these things work. It sounds like clarity is crucial here.
It really is. So let's start with the basic definition they provide. A curse in this view is absolutely not just random bad luck. It's presented as a specific, established legal penalty, or you could say a judicial punishment tied directly to something done or not done.
A legal penalty. I get the analogy, but how does that work in practice, like spiritually? If you break a spiritual law, what happens?
Well, it's described as operating just like a court case that ends in sentencing. When a wrong happens, a specific menu of consequences gets triggered automatically. And this menu, the source says, it's pretty comprehensive. We're talking about really disruptive stuff. Poverty, serious heartbreak, sickness that just won't go away, even premature death.
That distinction feels important. If
Yeah.
you remove the maybe, the source is saying you either have this penalty applied or you don't. No gray area.
Precisely. No, maybe. And that leads us to the two main ways these penalties get started. It's like looking at who the plaintiff is in a legal case. The first way is when the government is the plaintiff. In this analogy, that's God.
Right, so this is about breaking established rules, laws that are already known, like the traffic example the source used.
Correct. If you break a known rule, let's say speeding, like really speeding, the punishment is sort of fixed and automatic. The source mentions this specific case, someone doing 140 kVHA getting a huge fine. It illustrates the point. God sets the law, you break it, the penalty follows. Simple cause and effect.
Okay, and the second way, that's like a civil case.
Yeah, where a private citizen is the plaintiff. This means you're being essentially sued or cursed by another person. This would cover things like if you stole from someone, defrauded them, or just really wronged them deeply. Their distress, their curse against you, can apparently trigger a spiritual consequence.
Interesting. So who's the ultimate authority then in this system? Who actually issues these curses most often according to the source?
Well, this is quite direct in the source material. It states pretty clearly that the entity who curses the most and sets the most serious consequences in the Bible is God.
Which points us straight towards Deuteronomy, doesn't it? Chapter 28. That seems to be the key text here.
Absolutely. Starting around verse 15, the source highlights that the failure isn't just breaking the rules, it's twofold. Not following the law and not listening to God's voice. It implies a kind of willful disobedience.
Okay.
And that list of consequences, well, it's not subtle. It's like the ultimate anti-blessing checklist. If you're wondering what a curse might look like in life, this chapter lays it out. Things like the heavens becoming bronze.
Meaning what exactly? Like drought?
Yeah, drought, resources drying up, financial hardship, total stagnation. It also mentions things like incurable itching, never being able to finish what you start, even seeing your partner stolen away by someone else, social ruin.
Wow. That's a
Right.
pretty grim and detailed list. But if it's a legal penalty, who enforces it? Is it automatic or is there some kind of spiritual bailiff involved?
The source talks about it as a spiritual process of enforcement. And the real kicker, maybe, is how open-ended it gets in Deuteronomy 28, verse 61. Beyond all the specific disasters listed, it says God will bring every sickness and disaster not written in this book until you're utterly ruined, completely destroyed.
Utterly ruined. That's intense.
It implies a relentless kind of enforcement action, yeah.
Okay, so this raises the question of timing. Are these penalties instant, like boom, bad luck strikes?
Not always, no. The source clarifies that. A curse might not be immediate, like a lightning bolt, but it will overtake you. That's the phrasing used. It will catch up.
Ah, so there's a delay factor, like in the legal world.
Exactly. Think about it. A warrant might be issued, but it takes time to serve it. A court case has hearings before the final judgment is enforced. The source uses an example of, say, bouncing a check. You did that last month. But the lawsuit, the serious consequence, might only arrive 3 months later.
Right.
So something you did, some spiritual debt incurred in the past, could be manifesting as a major problem in your health or finances right now.
Okay, and we need to grasp just how pervasive this is meant to be. Deuteronomy 28 says it follows you everywhere, city, field, coming in, going out. How does that translate to, modern life, our offices, our homes?
Pervasive means it touches everything. It's not just about ancient agriculture anymore.
Yeah.
The source really emphasizes this. The curse extends to inanimate objects, things that aren't even human.
Like what?
Your baskets, your kneading bowls, translate that to today. Your computer, your car, your business equipment, power generators, even your pets, dogs, cats, goldfish. If the curse is active, the teaching says it affects your entire sphere of resources.
Oh, hang on. If my laptop keeps dying, or the car is always in the shop, or projects I start just fizzle out, that could actually be a sign of this spiritual penalty.
According to this framework, yes, that's precisely the kind of manifestation it talks about. And the clearest, maybe the ultimate sign the source points to, is a consistent failure to produce fruit.
Fruit meaning?
Results. Productivity. If you're working incredibly hard, investing time, energy, money, whether it's in a business, your job, even farming, but the results are just consistently poor, way out of line with the effort, that's presented as a key indicator that a curse might be operating.
That makes sense. It connects back to those early examples like Cain, right? Where the ground wouldn't yield for him.
Exactly. Or the fig tree Jesus cursed it, had leaves, looked promising, but no fruit, no substance.
So that could apply to someone in an office today. Always busy, but nothing profitable ever actually gets finished or delivered.
That's the implication, yes. A lot of effort, very little return.
Okay, so if this is a legal framework, what about the sentence length? How long do these things last?
Well, this is where it gets heavier. The source describes them as potentially everlasting if they aren't dealt with properly. They're designed, it says, to pass down through generations. So you see patterns, maybe it's chronic debt or repeated heartbreak or even a tendency towards early death recurring in children, grandchildren.
And this is where the source starts connecting it to specific families and even historical situations.
Right. It brings up the biblical examples like the house of Eli. He didn't restrain his sons, and the curse was that there'd never be an old man in his family line. Premature death became the pattern. Or Coniah, also called Jehoiachin, the king, cursed by God to be thrown out, basically, and none of his descendants would ever prosper on David's throne. A political curse with long-term impact.
And then there are the more controversial historical links made in the source.
Yes, and it's really important we state this clearly. The theologian we're studying cites Noah's curse on Canaan, Ham's son, as a root cause for long-term issues. Specifically, in this teaching, this ancient curse is linked directly to ongoing poverty in certain parts of Africa. The source names places like Rwanda, Kenya, and notes changes in South Africa after shifts in administration.
Okay.
Now, we have to stress, this is the specific interpretation presented by the source. It's linking a spiritual event to geopolitical outcomes. This deep dive is reporting on that view, not endorsing it as a historical or political analysis itself.
Understood. That context is crucial. They also bring it closer to home, don't they? Mentioning a modern example.
They do. The source points to the John F. Kennedy family, citing the pattern of tragic, untimely deaths as, in their view, an observable, real-world example of a generational curse, still potentially in effect.
Wow. Okay, shifting slightly, curses aren't just from God or inherited, right?
Right.
People can actively curse.
Yes, especially those seen as having spiritual authority. The source highlights God's authorized servants. Think of Joshua's curse on anyone rebuilding Jericho. He specified the penalty, loss of the firstborn and youngest sons.
And that actually happened later.
It did. The source points to 1 Kings, where Hiel of Bethel rebuilt Jericho and lost his sons, Obiram and Sigub, just as Joshua prophesied. A direct fulfillment.
And the story of Achan, his theft affected everyone.
Right. Achan took forbidden goods from Jericho, things under a curse. His individual sin brought difficulty, defeat actually, to the entire nation of Israel. And the consequence wasn't just for him. He, his family, everything he owned was destroyed. It shows how one person's issue, their legal penalty, can have a much wider communal impact if it's not dealt with.
Okay, so given how serious and potentially widespread these things are, how do you avoid them? Is there a way out?
This is where conditional curses come in. The source points to Proverbs 26, verse 2. It says, "A curse without cause will not land." It's like a bird that just flits by and doesn't settle.
The legal loophole. There has to be a valid reason.
Exactly. That's the critical distinction. If someone curses you just because they're jealous of your success or your looks or whatever, there's no legal basis in the spiritual realm, no cause. So according to this proverb, the curse can't attach. It has no power. But if they curse you with cause because you genuinely stole from them, cheated them, wronged them significantly, then the curse does have that legal standing. It has the authority to stick, and the source says it will bring ruin.
This seems like a good point to bring back that tension from the start. How does all this Old Testament legal stuff apply now, especially for Christians under the New Covenant?
Right, that's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah, because the initial hook was that even believers can be affected. If Christ redeemed us from the curse of the law, as the New Testament says, how does this source explain things like poverty or chronic illness persisting in a believer's life?
Okay, so the way the source material addresses this is nuanced. It basically says that redemption from the curse is available through Christ. It's been paid for. However, it's not always automatically applied to every single area of life without our participation. The curse, remember, operates on unaddressed legal grounds.
So for a believer, what grounds could still be there?
According to this teaching, it could relate to specific unconfessed sins. Or maybe a failure to really listen to and obey God's specific guidance for their life right now. Or, importantly, failing to actively renounce and break those inherited generational patterns we talked about. The freedom is legally purchased, yes, but the court case, the curse, might continue until you actively take steps to claim that freedom and clear the spiritual debt related to that specific issue.
Okay, that clarifies why they stress the need for active targeted steps. It's not just passive belief.
Exactly. Which leads us directly to the power of the tongue, especially for those in positions of authority, like parents and leaders.
Right. The source had some strong warnings there.
Very strong. It warns that parents who constantly speak negatively over their children, calling them stupid, worthless, good for nothing, they are using their God-given authority to actually establish these negative labels as spiritual realities, as curses that create real problems in their children's lives.
Wow. So words really do have power in this framework.
Immense power. And conversely, the source urges leaders, parents, anyone with influence, to use that same authority for intentional blessing. Actively speak positively. The teaching gives examples like speaking success over a business person, even if they're struggling now, or declaring a student has potential for great things, academically or musically, regardless of current grades or performance.
So it's about using words to establish a positive spiritual legal reality.
Precisely. It counteracts the negative potential of curses and aligns things with blessing instead.
This has been quite a deep dive into a complex spiritual legal system, as the source presents it.
It really has.
So for you listening, the main takeaway today, based on this teaching, is probably recognizing how curses are defined here. Not as random luck, but as specific penalties with specific causes. And understanding that conditional nature that a curse needs a reason to stick seems to be the first step towards finding any kind of resolution.
Absolutely. And maybe a final thought to leave you with, connecting back to that idea of fruitfulness. Given that the source cites hard work with little result, that constant struggle, that lack of fruitfulness as major evidence of a potential curse, it does compel you to ask, doesn't it? Are there areas in your own life, your work, your relationships, where you pour in effort, you try so hard, but the results just seem consistently disproportionately poor?
That's definitely something to reflect on based on everything we've discussed from this source.
We certainly hope this exploration has perhaps offered some valuable perspectives for you to consider.
And that's all from us for today. Thank you for joining the deep dive. God bless you.